In our last video, we were talking about body image and the pressures we have to conform to societal norms, even within the LGBTQI community. But that got me thinking about the ways in which there's an image that needs to present in the queer community in all sorts of facets of life. Ryan, in relationships, in your own relationships, what kind of image have you seen come about that kind of maybe acts into that aspect of having to present a certain way?
Yeah, I think that relationships are a place where image shows up hugely for the LGBTQI plus community, and that around queerness there's maybe a pressure to seem as though our relationships are going well, that they're healthy, because even though there needn't be, there is a societal shame that comes around being in a queer relationship, especially depending on your background. Families that are not accepting, all sorts of different backgrounds that might lead to not having familial support or friend support. And then so you embark on your journey, finding a relationship that feels right and life-giving to you, but in so doing you reject some of the norms that you came from, and so then to appear to have issues in your relationship, to be having a fight as a couple, which is a normal and healthy thing to do, you might want to hide that, because you don't want people to see that there's struggles in queer relationships too.
It can make the community look bad.
Exactly. There's an expectation from at least two directions, coming from the queer community, expecting us to live a certain way, to be a certain kind of liberated, and also the expectations of society, the pressure to do this correctly as far as normal relationships are concerned, normative relationships. And and I think that shows up with a pressure sometimes in the queer community as well to choose a certain type of relationship. There's a lot of pressure, I think, right now to be polyamorous, or to have open relationships even if they're not fully polyamorous. And that's not the way everyone wants to have a relationship. And I think it's hard to have that conversation right now where there's an expectation to express our liberation through being open.
Yeah.
And that's very visible, I think, especially during Pride. There can be a pressure to engage in party through open relationships.
Yeah, and to be okay with our own partner. And I think for myself, when I talk to clients, there can be a lot of jealousy at Pride, and a lot of fear of how are we going to be as a couple. It can almost feel like we need to be okay right now because everyone's looking at us.
Yeah. And there can be just that huge fear of rejection around being in the Pride space. Does my partner having an experience with someone else mean that I'm rejected? Is it too upsetting of a rejection for me to try to engage with someone else and for them to tell me no?
Yeah.
And then I know my partner's off having a good time and I've been rejected.
Sure.
And that's very scary, I think.
This brings up something for me, Ryan, that I talk to my clients about. And that we're allowed to have complexity of emotion in our relationship. We're allowed jealousy. We're allowed envy. We're allowed to feel rejected. And I think when you're talking about this aspect of image, it completely brings up some client sessions where we talk about that. That having an open relationship is not just utopia, that it's going to bring up emotions. It's going to bring up social comparisons. It can, at least. And because we have this image that we are liberated, sometimes it actually denies us to be able to allow ourselves to also have human feelings with this, which actually then we bottle down and then maybe feel resentment because we don't know how to speak about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I just recognize that even where someone has a desire to work with these emotions, maybe change their response to situations. They don't want to feel jealous as often as they do. That's a great thing to work on in therapy, or in other ways to work on your self-development as well. And yet I really want to say that it's okay if you still experience those emotions while you're working on them. The goal is not to eliminate your response to situations. It's to be thoughtful with how we engage with our feelings and ourselves. And therapy can be a great place to lay the groundwork for how you want to relate to yourself about those topics.
Absolutely. Mental health is not being fixed. It's not no longer feeling an emotion like anxiety or jealousy. It's recognizing why. It's recognizing where it comes from, what it's doing to you. That's self-awareness at its most perfect core. And once you have that, then you have another beautiful relationship marker, that every relationship, no matter what type of relationship you're in, is it's necessary. And that's communication. It's being able to speak to those needs. That we're entering into this season where we get to celebrate. And here's how I want us to celebrate as a couple. And here's what's going to make me feel safe as a couple. And here's what I might be experiencing when I haven't necessarily met those needs. That's enriching to a relationship, not debilitating.
Absolutely. And a therapist, and I would say especially centered self therapists, are a great place to start to identify those needs so that you can, through the support of your therapist, think, what is the right relationship for me? Because it might not be the relationship my queer friends have. It might be different than what theirs looks like. It might be similar. And to be able to identify and honor those needs so that you can then communicate them to your current or future partners is essential.
Thank you so much for joining us for today's video series on the image of relationships and how they look and what we need to do to feel empowered in them. Join us for our next video on what that might look like when relationships go bad, what abuse looks like, and how we can navigate that when we want things to seem okay.